Yo, it's MC Devi here. You are listening to the Bayat Beat podcast, exposing the truth as we see it. This is a podcast where a son, a mother of one, and a grandmother of three open up each other's eyes to the Matrix, look at the modern day world from the perspective of three different generations, follow, laugh, and brilliantly analyze the tragic comedy we know as the human experience. Music you are listening to is by my late and great grandfather Saadun Albayati. May he rest in peace. You can get high off oxygen.
I know.
I think so. Like, apparently people go into meditative trances and then the DMT in their minds activate and they go on some trips.
What does this have to do with corruption, Devin?
Yo, it's MCW.
Woo!
And the Hizal. I'm here with my two lovely co-hosts. Four lovely co-hosts, actually. We have the talented Reverend Summer Albayati on my left, who has a little orange tabby sitting on her lap. That is Leonidas, warrior Spartan cat Leonidas. And then over here I have the matriarch Barbara Albayati, and
hello.
Kiala, our cat, is somewhere hiding like she always does. Princess the Huntress Kiala. Yes, that's our nicknames. We give our cats beautiful nicknames because we care and love about our children.
Yes.
Okay.
They're very sweet, very cute, and everyone should have such cute kitties as we.
Yeah. I think ours are cuter than like everybody else's.
They're far, far cuter than average.
Yeah,
I don't
far
know
cuter.
if that's true,
Far
guys,
cuter.
but it's
Love
okay. It's okay.
Well, this is my first cat, so they're gonna be far cuter.
Oh, okay.
No matter what. You know?
Yeah, that's your bias. I know.
Cuteness level is gonna go way up. So I'm sure you heard our topic. Our topic was corruption.
Yes.
I need to slow down my mind here, but I know it's 6 o'clock. And I went to the gym and I had a good day. So, you know.
And I went to the
life
gym
is.
and I had a good day.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to the gym, and I had a good day.
Great.
Well, you need to go to the gym.
Okay.
And I know you two saw a bunch of actors and actresses yesterday at a party.
Oh my, yes. And dancers.
Mhm.
And we were so happy.
And they
Musicians.
were
we
all
had
from
fun.
Star Trek. Mostly.
Our
actually.
hostess was Tanya Lamani George, a belly dancer of great fame. She lives in Chatsworth, California. And she appeared on Star Trek in the role of, I don't know if it's pronounced Kara or Kara, Kara.
The belly dancer.
Yes. And she is the most gracious hostess, along with her husband Charles. And we were delighted to spend from about 3 p.m. until whatever we left, I don't know, 9 o'clock with them.
Wow.
It was wonderful. And
Yes.
we saw many old friends and met some new people who are now our friends.
Yes. Charles is a good name.
It's an excellent name.
I don't know why I just honed in on Charles.
Well, you have a couple of cousins named Charles.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So today our topic is corruption, which we've said 3 times now. And a synonym for corruption is dishonesty.
Yes.
Like when you look up on Google, not that Google knows everything, but when you look up on Google, it says dishonesty, blah, 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 especially in blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to look it up right now again, but I read it because I'm a good podcast host.
Yes.
Yes,
But-
you are, Devin.
Okay. Corruption
Corruption's-
is basically dishonesty.
Yeah, so before we get into your normal old corruption and politics and all that stuff, we'll get to that because that's very relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to first focus on how we deal with it in our daily lives, because I think that's the most important, because not everybody really gives a crap about politics. Let's be honest here. So, how do we deal with that in our daily lives? Corruption.
Well, I would just like to start off with the notion that some people are so privileged in this society that they really don't have to deal with corruption directly.
Mm.
I am recalling my own father, who was very beloved to me and my sisters, and my mother, of course. And he was a privileged white male, 6 feet tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. Very well educated because he had a PhD and he was a professor. And he, I believe, never had to deal with corruption directly.
In business, or what do you mean?
In business, in any aspect of his life. So, it confused me when I grew up and saw lots of corruption and had to deal with it because I was female. I was married to a person who was sometimes considered white, sometimes considered non-white. It depends on the
Sometimes
whims.
considered neither, right?
Yeah.
Depends on the whims of society.
The invisible.
So, when we even had to deal with, let's say, getting credit, getting a credit card, because my husband was not blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more difficult for us than for other people, and there could be corruption in the system which denied us credit. So, I know that my father never had to deal with that level of corruption. It's corruption when people are able to lie about you. I remember in one credit check, we were told that the people who checked on us had said, "Oh, Mr. Albayati only works part-time intermittently, and Mrs. Albayati is not a student at the University of Chicago at all." And those were 2 lies.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. This was a constant in our lives.
Yeah, I bet. With all the stories I've heard, that a lot of people, if you told them straight up, would not believe. Probably, if you that happened in the First World Empire.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
Now, you said your father didn't deal with corruption, but he was German, right?
Well, he was German from 1776. I mean,
Yes.
his bloodlines were mainly Scots, Irish, and English. The German was from 1776, the time of our
Creating
Revolutionary
this new
War.
nation.
Revolutionary
Yeah,
War.
his ancestors
When
were the
his
mercenaries. Yes.
ancestor, Heinrich Kuhn,
Heinrich.
yeah,
Sorry.
served as a Hessian mercenary on behalf of the British against the Americans.
Okay. But I recall you telling me that there was a little bit of discrimination towards him because of something. Was it his name or?
Yeah, that was in World War II.
Yeah, World War II.
In World War II, I was told by my mother, my father never told me this, that There was some discrimination. No, I'm not going to say discrimination. There was some talk about him because he had a German last name, even though it was a German last name that arrived on this continent in 1776.
Mm-hmm.
And he had blonde hair and a red beard.
Yeah.
And they wondered if he was loyal to the United
He
States.
was
Oh, wow.
loyal.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
And this happened to a lot
Mhm.
of Germans, German origin people in that
Yeah.
period. However, since his family had been here from, as I say, once again, 1776, that was a bit foolish. But that's what happens during times of war and
war.
prejudice.
Yeah. Those are the dangers of a multiracial society. Are they not?
Probably. That's probably true, because everyone wants a society that's heterogeneous, and it's very difficult to incorporate new people into our society, even though my father's German family came here in 1776.
You progressively got closer into the mic as you
Yes,
said
I did.
that.
Well, so, yes, your father's family came,
Your grandfather's family.
yes, at that time, but
Devin's great-grandfather's family.
your mother's family came prior to that, correct?
No, after that. Well,
I'm sorry.
No, my
Hello.
mother's family emigrated to the United States in 1907.
Okay.
1907.
Excuse me. We have ancestry on your
You're
side.
talking about
that
my
dates back.
father's maternal ancestry.
Thank you. Because it makes it sound, you keep repeating the 1776, it makes it sound like that his people showed up in 1776, but he has other people
No,
that
I'm
showed
only
up prior
talking
to that.
about the German part of the
The
family.
paternal German.
Yeah, we're
plus-
talking about the discriminated against part.
Oh, okay, because the other part,
My-
which would
the
probably-
maternal family.
right, bring some shock to him is why am
Some of
I
them
being
came on the
discriminated
Mayflower.
against
Okay.
if he did recognize that fact, which he must have because he told your mom about it. But he has other ancestors that came on the Scottish Irish, I'm assuming English part, that came on the Mayflower,
English.
correct?
Yeah, I'm sure that.
So that must have been confusing for him. Like,
I
wait
don't
a
think he
second.
was confused. He was probably highly annoyed.
Highly
knowing my
annoyed.
father.
Okay. So he was famous for this one phrase that I would say whenever I think something is maybe corrupt, I guess we could say. I would quote my grandfather. I say my grandfather would say, "That's a racket."
Yes,
That's
and
right.
he usually was talking about textbooks.
Oh, I use it for everything else.
Well,
Well,
of
textbooks
course.
in and of themselves are corrupt. They're $200 for a new
Right.
one.
Yeah, to begin
Exactly,
with.
and they may only make a few editorial changes
And then you gotta buy
every
a new
few
one.
years,
Yeah.
and then it's a new edition, and it has to be replaced.
Well,
Exactly.
and then, I mean, I don't even want to get into, you have to look at it. Is it great scholarship? Is it not? What have you? So let's not get into that.
Exactly.
let's
Especially when
not
it
get into
comes
that.
to never mind.
Yeah. Let's not-
Religions.
yeah. Let's not get too far.
I
into
think we
that,
need a
'cause
whole
that's a rabbit
podcast
hole. Yeah.
on the corruption of textbooks.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a rabbit
Absolutely.
hole. I don't wanna go down
Absolutely,
that
and I
one.
know a few people who might be able to contribute to such a
Oh,
conversation.
excellent.
Goddamn
okay, that's
textbooks.
a future podcast. Language. Thank you.
Look at this kitty cat.
I know, so cute.
He's
History
sleeping.
and religion textbooks.
So let's get into more corruption, shall we?
Okay. So, we covered a little bit of the German side. Yes, did we not? We did. But you did marry an Iraqi.
Because he was the cutest cute boy I ever met.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure he was. Lots of cute pictures of him. So you dealt, like most Arabs in this country, dealt a lot with corruption, not just within politics, but also amongst communities, right? So how is that for you two in a very, what's the word? Unbalanced time. That's not a good word.
Okay, well, that's a tough question. And ordinarily, I would be very protective of the community. But we were dealing with representatives of political forces in the Middle East who we didn't think were being entirely honest and who we thought were wanting to profit from war in the Middle East.
Representatives in the Middle East. So like prime ministers.
No.
What do you mean?
Business people.
Oil.
Here. No, business people here.
Business people here.
What Grandma's referring to is Arab Americans.
Oh.
Arab
Who
Americans, let's
thought they
say
could
Iraqi Americans who
profit if there was a war on Iraq.
Yes, and they did
For
profit.
instance.
Did we profit? No. Because your grandfather would not ever have permitted us to profit from war against his own people. One of the reasons I admire your grandfather so much is that he was not corrupt.
He was honorable.
Honorable. He had honor. Sharaf. Honor.
And yet there are those within communities, and it probably is not just, I mean, it's not just Arab American community. Other communities of color deal with corruption within their own communities in terms of if there's going to be imminent war upon their lands, and you know, meaning their lands elsewhere afar, they could jump on that bandwagon, right? So that's what your grandmother is referring to, is that there was the notion that there were those who were, let's go to war because they were going to profit from it, when there were others within the community that were saying, no, let's not go to war, you know? And so you had two different peoples, so to speak. And that reminds me of what happened with, where was it? I was reading was this the part in the New Human Revolution in which they talked about, was it Brazil? Where a lot of Japanese were going to, was it Brazil, and doing farming and things of that nature. Do you recall that chapter?
I don't recall.
Oh, maybe you weren't there for
Was
that
it
discussion.
Brazil or Peru? I don't know.
Oof. I'm forgetting which country exactly, but what ended up happening was when we were dealing with, you know, World War II and all of that, there was sort of this division among the Japanese in that country, and some believe that were believe that the Japan gave up, right? And others believe that Japan would never give up. And so there started being division even within the Japanese community, the diaspora that was not necessarily in Japan, because they were having all of the information blocked. They weren't allowed to have newspapers, and they were really blocked from
Society.
yeah, and from their own sort of culture, so to speak.
Mhm.
So
Well, let's talk about Iran.
Today?
Yes. And the current attitude on the part of some people that we should go to war with Iran and
wow.
conquer Iran and bomb them into oblivion the way we decided to do in Iraq. And as it happens, there has been a movement among a certain small percentage of Iranians in the United States who, like the Iraqis of the 2003 invasion, Iraqis from America and the UK mainly, of the 2003 invasion, who supported getting rid of Saddam and bombing the hell out of everybody and profiting. Okay? We have that same phenomenon in Iran. It worked very well with Iraq because members of the U.S. government would have meetings with selected Iraqis in the United States who had a certain mission,
Agenda.
and to not only overthrow Saddam, but take over the country. Okay? They were shut out, by the way, by the Iraqi people. Okay, although certain of them who profess their innocence in the whole matter have profited greatly. And in fact, so many of the current legislators in Iraq live outside of Iraq most of the time and draw bigger salaries per month than I draw yearly with my University of California pension.
In Iraq or out of Iraq?
They're living outside of Iraq. They're supposed to be part of the legislature in Iraq, but they draw huge salaries per month.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger than what per month they get, more than I get in an annual pension from the University of California.
Because they
the whole
benefited
the whole
off of
system
corruption.
is corrupt.
Yeah, they benefited off
It's a
of
corrupt
corruption.
system. Hello, corrupt. All right? So, we're starting to see the same sort of deal being set up among Iranians in the United States, the majority of whom do not want war in Iran, but there are a select few that our government is dealing with and whose opinions and status are considered more important than the majority of Iranians. Now, I am hoping, because the Iranians are a pretty powerful community in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They're people who escaped from the Ayatollahs when they came in, okay? And they escaped with funds intact. They mainly invested, they had money deposited in Swiss banks and so on. So they came here as a pretty uniform social class with funds.
Mhm.
Okay. They do not want for the United States to punish Iran with bombings and so on. Okay. Yes, they would like for a better form of government, but not expressly punishing the people of Iran, who are many of whom are their relatives. Okay. But what has happened is that there are certain Iranians who are playing into the American,
Propaganda machine.
propaganda machine, but position, and we hope that Iran does not suffer the same consequences that Iraq suffered.
That would be very terrible.
Right.
You said my grandfather had a lot of honor. Do you
Yes.
think that's why I have a lot of honor
Yes.
and our family has a lot of honor because of that foundation?
Yes, I do believe that. Honor is the quintessential value of the Arab and Iraqi people.
That's been my thought.
And the Scottish people.
But you're saying there's a few bad leeches.
Yeah.
Bad seeds everywhere.
Bad seeds.
Everywhere.
But-
So, go ahead. Go ahead.
But here's the deal. You're talking about values. You're talking about corruption, right? We're talking about morality, right? What is moral? What is not moral, right? What is corruption? Corruption is acting in an immoral way. So what is considered moral? And a society decides that, right? And then society implements that via creating laws. And that's how we govern people. But to me, all you have to do is look, if there's mass corruption, then there is something on a spiritual level going on. That people are not feeling loved and cared for and accepted. And when you have, so much corruption seen in a society, it's because people are saying, hey, we need to mess with the system that's oppressing us. Or we are not being oppressed and we're going to keep oppressing others because we need to have more than the others.
Yeah.
Right? And so all of it is a reflection of this sort of wrestling with the spiritual self, which can be seen in not loving one another, not loving oneself, not loving the environment. I mean, I can go on and on and on.
Yeah. Do you think that's why cheating in relationships has been normalized?
Has it been normalized?
Very normalized.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
I did not know this.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's horrible.
A lot of teenagers especially cheat.
Oh, no. I really did not know this. That it's been
Well,
normalized.
I mean, are you saying that my making the point about corruption being sort of a spiritual angst, that may be a reason why teens may cheat on one another?
Yeah. Well, society, in the West especially, really society in the West is having a issue now with spirituality, and it's going through a transition period. So a lot of kids don't have morality, and they sort of find morality by trial and error, and most don't actually find any morality. And it's kind of sad, but just for example, talk to a kid who was born into a Catholic family and challenge their values. They will not have values.
What
do you
What do you
mean?
mean by that?
Align their values with the Catholic Church. Those values do not align.
Oh, because for instance,
They're rebelling against the Catholic
right.
Church?
So for instance, I was having a discussion earlier today about something like abortion, and whereas the Catholic Church says no to abortion, those who practice that faith could say, no, I disagree with that, and yes, abortion is okay, right? Like
Yeah,
the women's right to choose is more
That's
important than
one-
what the religious institution is telling me.
yes, you're talking about
Or
a little bit.
using birth control when you're not supposed to use birth control
Uh-huh.
because the institution tells you you're not supposed to, but you're like, I'm not getting pregnant, or I'm not getting somebody pregnant, so I'm going to use
But
birth
is this
control.
corruption?
No, it's not.
Well, you're talking about the political split within society that kids go through too. And, when we talk about teenagers especially, it's really difficult because of all this, everybody trying to push their own agenda. So, for example, abortion, they're torn because the media is more liberal. And so, therefore, abortion is, seen as, it's the woman's choice.
Well, we did
Whereas
have
the church is more conservative.
Right, but I mean, we had this law called Roe v. Wade that allowed for abortions, and it's been, I don't know, has it been overturned? What happened in
It
some
has
states?
not yet been overturned.
Okay, well, what about that one state that's
Alabama.
Alabama? Thank you. Banned like, what did they do in Alabama? What did they decide about abortion there?
Well,
Is that corruption? Is it corrupt to
Well, tell us
allow?
what they decided, because I'm not really sure.
Well, okay, but I mean, if it's a religious agenda and we have this thing called separation of church and state, okay, then there's a religious agenda going on that is allowing for a whole state to decide that you can no longer, it's illegal to have abortions in their state. That is now no longer honoring the separation of church and state, and it is allowing religion to influence politics and influence the legal law, the law of this land.
Exactly.
That regulates morality.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is when a kid is growing up with a certain laws of morality that the church give them, they are confronted with the state having an opposite reaction to those laws. So you are creating a spiritual deconstruction and angst of
because of
developing minds.
separation of church and state. And it can be any religion. You're just using.
I'm just
church
using
as an
Christianity.
Example. Yeah, but it could be any religious
But this
background.
I'm using
a very
monotheism
this is a very
as an
good
example.
point.
Right.
It's a very good point. And Professor John Whiteley, that's Whiteley of University of California, Irvine, as I recall, did a major study on the development of morality in teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe people ought to take a look at that and see how it might dovetail with the sort of thing you're talking about today, with the religious influence or the
Mhm.
religious non-influence.
Hmm.
I think that would be very interesting.
Yes. But that's something that
But it's developmentally, it's a stage that teenagers tend to
Yes.
go through.
yeah.
Yes,
But they
it
go
is.
through it. I didn't go through that. I grew up knowing exactly where my morals aligned.
Okay.
So
So
and
when you would speak in terms of in class, you never sort of wavered. You always knew what your values were. And
yeah,
you were kind of like that
That's
steady.
rare.
What's
I
that
was the
called? The
rock.
steady ship or the steady. What is
I was
that called?
grounded in my values.
Okay.
The tree.
That's why I
The
got
tree
so
standing
pissed
in
when
the
I'd
wind,
argue with
yeah.
teenagers because their views would change every week.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was difficult
But-
for you. But maybe you went through that developmental process earlier than they
Earlier.
did.
Possibly.
Because you were, maybe
Possibly.
ahead of your time or something. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's what happened.
Maybe. But I think it's been postponed to the 20s. Like, people are 25
Oh.
now, and their morality is still developing.
Right.
And it usually happens at a point when they get a DUI, when the state gets involved and says,
Right.
everything we've been teaching you is
Mm.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something to think about,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Well, and what happens when they say kids are all watching. They're going to do what you do, they're not going to do what you say. And how many are saying, "Oh, yeah, I believe in such and such." They're saying it, but then the young people see that they don't really believe in such and such because they're going and doing this behavior that's in the exact opposite of what they've just said. We call that a hypocrites, right? So if they see hypocrites in their midst, whether that be in their family or outside of their family, they see teachers, they see I don't know, political figures,
Oh, yeah.
or
authority figures, persons
right,
of authority that they respect,
or musicians and actors and other artists, right, that are out there and are in positions of authority because of their fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what are they going to think? Oh, well, I don't know. Name somebody who, I don't know. I don't want to name anybody.
Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Is that a good
I
one?
was going to come up
I
with a
don't know.
musician or something.
Oh.
But okay.
No, I think Bill Clinton's a good
Michael
example.
Jackson.
Okay.
Michael Jackson.
So you see that, they act hypocritically, so then you're like, whoa, wait a second.
Whoa, you were my hero.
That's right. Now what
6
do I do
months
with
ago.
this? Now what do I do with this?
Exactly.
Right?
And I'll tell you how many times that's happened. That's happened a lot. And I've gotten to the point where it's like, shit. You know?
Mm-hmm.
You have no heroes.
Yeah.
Well, I went through that myself.
Well, not that I have no heroes or no mentors, or it's the thing that you get to a point where it's like, okay, I can't trust anybody. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
you also get to a point where it happens, enough that, okay, I respect this person's values,
Right.
but their other values I don't respect.
Right. Yeah.
For example, they're right on this, and this, but they're wrong on having an affair, against their wife.
Well,
for example.
and then the spiritual aspect of that is the various corruptions, right? They may refer to that in terms of theologically, corruption of the flesh, right? So having an affair is because you're giving into those needs of the flesh, and you're not supposed to do that, right?
Mhm.
You're not supposed to give in to that. You have somebody like Augustine who, wrote a whole book about that, in terms of, if we're going to go into theologians, that's Christian theology, but that's what Augustine would have been all about. Like, don't be doing that, right?
Yeah.
Don't give in to that. And
It's a bad idea.
right. And then you have those who are very conservative religiously, whether it be, of a monotheistic faith like Christianity or Islam or Judaism or even other non-monotheistic religions that may be conservative in their thinking and tell their kids, okay, wait till you get married, right? Don't have sex, right? And they're not taking into consideration that these hormones were put there
For a reason.
because we were all having kids
For
at the age of
procreation.
12 and 13 and 14 way back when. Well, just because we're all delaying when we have kids because we're going to college and things like that doesn't mean that those hormones are still not there, right?
Exactly.
And
And,
then
I
if you
would love to
tell them-
have great grandchildren, but
Right.
take your
But-
time.
Take your
Right.
time.
Thank
oh,
you.
thank you.
But
That
thank you,
that
thank you,
that
yeah.
reassuring.
But here's the deal. You have people. So a part of what may be considered corrupt is that there are communities within our nation that have teenagers in particular that have high STD rates within the teenager community.
I mean,
Because-
STD meaning.
Sexually transmitted diseases.
Thank
Ooh.
you.
Because they're not teaching sex education in the schools, okay? And they're not doing that because it's being regulated, even though we say there's separation of church and state. That's a part of the corruption. How separate is it when school districts are being regulated and being disallowed from providing simple information about, hello, if you have sex and you are not protecting yourself, right, then you could get a sexually transmitted disease. And yet, I mean, my alma mater, they still teach the same thing they taught me when I went there, which is abstinence. Well, that's kind of dumb. I'm just going to say that out loud. That is
Abstinence.
very dumb to
Your high
Abstaining.
school alma
students
mater?
when they got those hormones going.
Abstaining
your
from
high
sex.
school alma
Yeah.
mater?
Yeah, I'm talking about high school.
And the name of your high school?
Estancia.
Name it.
Estancia.
Estancia
Yeah.
High School.
And
Costa
and
Mesa, California.
And that's
Yeah.
a merging of church and state, is what you're saying.
what I'm saying is you are allowing religion
To
and
get in the
religious
way.
beliefs to get involved in something that has to do with the state because it's a regulating body. It's public education, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by then that's, when those lines get blurred, then we've got corruption. We have got communities of kids, Bakersfield in Kern County being a community that has a high STD rate. Well, do you think they teach sex education there? No, they do not. There's a lot of religious influence in that district. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about corruption.
Yeah, you're talking about the church doesn't talk about sex, so you're not allowed to talk about it in schools and
Right.
teach our Catholic kids about sex because it's
But it's not just Catholic.
bad.
It's everybody.
Public
We're
Yeah.
talking about
No, I know,
public.
I know what you mean.
I'm not talking about
But
private
there-
institutions.
And we're
But I'm-
talking
about
I'm
about
giving the
not
just-
Catholics,
no.
but
No.
Protestants.
I'm giving the justification for a
Okay.
certain church.
Okay.
No, but it's not
talk
just
about
that.
Protestants.
Protestant churches as well are doing that.
I know, that's
we've got
just an
the religious
example.
right. We've got the very conservative churches that don't want that. We could, it's possible that we've got other monotheistic conservative groups out there as well.
Of course there is.
Islam, Judaism. For all we know, we could have non-monotheistic groups out there that are very conservative and don't want that taught as well, and they jump on that bandwagon. Buddhists, Hindus, I don't know. We don't know.
They jump on that bandwagon of saying don't teach sex education.
Right.
In schools.
Just teach abstinence. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Instead of, if you're going to do it, you need to protect yourself from STDs, because that's the big thing that you need to worry about right now.
And STDs are more important than pregnancies in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Because they're
They
dangerous.
can be. They're very dangerous. They can kill people.
Huh. I'm trying to... See, I'm a very logical person. So, to me, that is illogical. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you want teenagers to become very self-aware enough to the point where they can decide how they transmute their sexual energy?
How they transmute or transmit?
Transmit
What do you
or
mean?
transcend.
What do you mean?
Both. Like, how they control their sexual
Right.
emotions. Because a lot of times, here's the catch.
Yeah.
A lot of kids are just living off their sexual emotions. A lot of adults are just living off their sexual desires because it's what's been programmed into our primitive reptilian minds.
Okay, well, I have a primitive reptilian mind, and
we all do.
it's all good.
It's all good.
No. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, you're talking about a spiritual angst. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit, like there's. So I'm just
What's
showing
right and
one,
wrong? Is that what we're talking about?
No, one type of corruption that shows that we are not operating from a separation of church and state mindset, which is corruption in and of itself. Here's just one example of how we are not allowing kids to become their authentic selves, to be able to be autonomous at a time when they're trying to figure out their values developmentally, right? Their decisions about morality happen as teenagers, right?
Agreed.
You experience frustration with that, but that is developmentally where everybody is supposed to be. You just went there earlier, obviously, right?
Obviously. I think I had to. But yeah.
So now, can we talk about adults, including older adults, and corruption and morality and government? Because I think that's where this should be leading.
Oh.
We have loads of corruption in our present government in the United States. Maybe more than we were ever aware of in the past. It was always there, but it is so transparent. We want a transparency in government. Okay, we've got it.
There you get it. It's a circus.
Really not good.
It's a freaking zoo.
Yes.
Well, right. I mean, you clearly what you're talking about is that our current president is facing possible impeachment, correct?
Yes.
Mm.
That is what I'm talking about.
So what are you saying? How do we deal with it? Because there's a lot of people dealing with it. Bernie Sanders, AOC, Iman, what's her name?
And they're more secure in dealing with it than some of the rest of us. Well, I might be secure in it, but oh my gosh. At my age, I am so sorry that it has come to this. I had faith in our last president, except that he started breaking promises immediately after he was elected. He did some good, but he also did a hell of a lot of bad. And now we have the current president who seems to want to run things the way he ran his own businesses and seems not to understand that a government cannot do that. That the things that he does are by definition corrupt.
So how do you run a government?
Exactly.
Well, you take an oath of office, right? So,
Which
I-
also has to do with
Pelosi-
honor.
right. Pelosi discussed this. It's like a breach
Honor.
of oath of office, breach of dealing with the election process, and then something having to do with, I think, protecting. I've forgotten. I had written down what she had said in her speech, protecting our nation. And so when you pledge to be the president of the United States, or whatever position you're pledging to do, I pledge to defend this nation, right?
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies, outside and inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Domestic and international.
Right.
That's right. And so when you don't do that, then that is your breach, your breaking of your contractual
Your oath.
obligation, that oath you promised, and you broke that promise. And when somebody breaks a promise, do we say, oh, it's okay, no worries? Or do we say, no, that is not okay? You have the highest office of this country, and you must be the honorable person that you are called to be, right?
Setting
it's like
an
a
example
call,
for
a
us.
calling,
Our
exactly.
role model in chief.
Role model in chief for all, not just the teenagers that are watching you and the elementary students that are watching you, and
But the
middle school
80-year-olds.
students. Right. Even the 80-year-olds need to have somebody to look up to. And when you fall short, what are we supposed to do? Say, oh, it's okay. Or
No.
do we
We
say,
do not
no,
accept corruption.
you get punished?
Okay, well, what about the other side of things, the conservative side? For them, it is very much the highest, like our mentor, our president. But we're speaking from a liberal perspective, correct?
Yeah, I think that they're starting to rethink that issue.
Wasn't it like 35 Republicans? I'm not saying all Republicans are conservative, because they're not. My grandfather was a Republican, but as you have said before, he probably wouldn't vote
But I'm not
for
talking
Republicans today.
See, I'm not talking about politicians though. I'm talking about the groups of people around the country who see Trump as their Lord and Savior.
Well, those are
Oh,
pretty exclusively people who pay attention to the Fox broadcasting channels. There are a variety of, I mean, it's Fox News, Fox Business, Fox something or other. But even Fox is pulling away from supporting the current president.
there's not
right.
that's
Ooh.
Well,
not
okay,
just Fox.
okay. The people who have supported the president have been observing the stock market.
Okay, but that's one side of the coin. There's a whole generation of men, especially, that see the president as
I
this
see. You're
great
talking
man.
about the white power people.
the white power people.
Okay,
but
the
even,
white power people of all ages. Okay, who don't necessarily watch Fox.
don't necessarily correct.
Okay.
So, like, I want to challenge
so
this.
that has to do with
because not everybody will be happy.
right.
Correct.
Right.
Not everybody will be happy with what?
With the president.
Well,
With
so
with impeaching
we're
the
talking
president,
about the
or-
white
do you
power
mean?
people.
Well,
and
you were saying, and you were speaking from a liberal perspective.
Mhm.
You know, do we want this as as an example for our children and our blah 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 blah.
Well, why is that a liberal perspective? How is that a liberal perspective?
Because
I would say that if it was a democratic,
that could be an old time, meaning a few years ago, Republican perspective.
true, but I'm saying you're speaking from a certain perspective,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I want to address
but
the
maybe
other
it's my-
perspective.
These liberal conservative so-called perspectives are pretty new. Just a very few years ago, a Republican would never have accepted the behavior of our current president.
And what I'm saying is there's people that do today.
There are
and
people
they
that do
100% do see
Yes.
him as a great example.
And that's partly because I think he represents what they consider saving the white people perspective. Now, some of those people would not have been considered white 75 years ago.
Yes.
There are lots of Italians in the white supremacist groups. And as I recall, as a child, they were not heavily in favor and not really considered white. So there's got to be a lot of rethinking.
Well, white is a social construct.
It's a social construct.
So that's a part of the
But
problem.
they have socially constructed themselves to be white.
Well,
Okay.
and they were socially constructed by the government way back when. So there's that
the
as
government
well.
and society
Yeah.
to be non-white.
Exactly. And then to be white. So first you're non-white, now
Mhm.
we are going to
Yeah.
make you white. Yay!
Well, even the Southern Irish were not
experienced that. Yeah.
the Catholic Irish
Right. And
were
then
not considered white, and then they became white.
and then they became white, and then wasn't Kennedy?
Yes.
Kennedy was Catholic
Yes.
Irish, and he became the wonderful president, right? But I guess I guess I go back on what you were saying about my perspective being a liberal perspective, and I think that it should be everybody's perspective. It's based on the ideals, the values of our nation, that when you have the highest oath of office, right, you are the highest example. You're supposed to be. It's a historically a position that is supposed to be the highest. And when you see this person in the highest position acting cavalier and getting away with things, and was a reality TV star, and probably became president of the United States based on that type of fame, like this fame had been constructed over a long period. And you see old videos when he was younger saying, "Oh, I don't know, maybe I'll become president." So planting that seed over a long period.
Yeah, he's
right?
a smart businessman.
Smart. Very smart. Right?
Well,
And
how smart was he
well, I don't
as a businessman?
know.
He declared bankruptcy 6
right,
times.
6 times.
Because it was
exactly.
a smart move, though.
It was
wasn't
a
It was
smart-
a smart move,
smart
for him.
marketing
for him.
but
Yeah.
not for society.
He's
Yeah,
been-
because
right.
he's corrupt.
He's been marketing himself all these years. And so when you have that, and you have people looking up to that, and thinking, "Oh yeah, the economy, oh yeah," and believing every single thing that he says, yeah, but that can't be the majority of our society. I mean, that's got to be a small percentage of people
I'm
that
sure
just
it is, yeah.
that just don't get it. And you just like, you want to hit your forehead and say, I could have had a V8. Is that what it's called? That tomato juice?
Yeah,
V8, yeah,
V8.
yeah. I'm talking about old time commercials, yeah. But where you just like, what, and yet they're out there. But I think that the evidence I was trying to bring was that how many Republicans voted to go ahead with the impeachment inquiries. Is that what they call it?
Yes.
Right?
35.
35. That's a lot. That says something about they are not as enamored with him at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, and I'm not saying that we don't have systems of corruption. We do. But we have enough people, I think, speaking up about the values, right? And people have been speaking up over the past few years about this. The Obamas being one of them, especially Michelle Obama. She would speak out about how when they go low, we go high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember that phrase, and I think, exactly, that's honorable. You don't steep to people's levels, right? Steep?
Yes.
Stoop to people's levels, sorry.
Step. You could say step.
Step.
Couldn't you?
Step. Yeah, no. Stoop.
But on a certain level, the Obamas have been corrupt.
Yes. Not the Obamas. I would have to say former President Obama. I haven't seen corruption on the part of Michelle or the daughters. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
And we do admire the fact that they represented the United States as an intact family and married couple.
Mm-hmm.
That was very beautiful.
Yeah.
Where President Obama, where I was disappointed in him was that he didn't get us out of Afghanistan and not entirely out of Iraq, and that he went into Libya and really screwed it up. Now, I know he had encouragement from certain Libyans in the United States, some of whom may be friends of ours, and I care about them deeply. I did not support the leader of Libya,
Gaddafi,
but you have to remember he did bring water to all the villages in Libya, which is something very important. Now that country is a mess. Hillary Clinton was a major factor in the destruction of Libya. And I don't know on whose behest she was acting, because it's not just the United States that's involved in attacking Arab countries.
Mm-hmm.
And Muslim countries and Middle Eastern countries. Okay.
Well,
that is corrupt.
You're bringing up a point in that power just may be so enticing as to create corrupt peoples, that when you get enough power may become corruption, and therefore you become corruption. And so are we saying that we cannot have anybody in the highest form of office, and maybe the fact that our founders, right, created this, well, yeah, that as well, when they created all this, saying, "Ooh, all men are created equal." Well, no, not all men were created equal, clearly, and not all women, and not all children.
That,
right,
yeah.
Exactly. So we know that there's some problems with that, but if we rethink what that means and we say all persons are created equal, right,
and
in this fine nation of ours,
men.
Huh?
And redefine who are men.
Right. Meaning we don't say we
meaning that black people are
replace
men.
We replace men, and we say all persons are created equal.
All right.
I'm replacing that word men, okay? But let's just say that we look at the fact that they set up a president and vice president and all these wonderful ways in which we do government, okay? Was that the best way to do it? Because there are communities of color that may not have this hierarchical way of doing things. And it may be more equal.
Tribal.
Right? Exactly. And the way that you come to decisions. And so
through consensus, for example.
Right, exactly. And so maybe the fact that we've established a hierarchy within our systems in this country, maybe that is needs to be challenged. Maybe people need to start talking about, is there another way of doing this? Because we've created corruption. We messed up. We messed up, and can we change this? Now, maybe we can't. Maybe we can. I have no idea.
I think
there's
we can.
this idea
I have faith
that if we don't have government, society will collapse. But we will always divert to a tribal state, I think. Right?
Well, tribal
Just a
states
thought.
have government.
Exactly. Well,
Right. It's a form of government.
It's a form of government.
It's a form of government, but it's but
more
the way
communal.
Well, it's
right?
more communal. It's more,
It's the tribe.
Yeah, it's more a group of elders making decisions and coming to consensus.
True.
Well, and there are religious groups. I'm trying to think. I can't remember. The name of the group, but they sit and they discuss and discuss and discuss until everybody comes to the same sort of conclusion.
Which could take several days.
Oh my goodness, what is the name of that group? I can't remember.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I read a quote today, and I'm gonna read it now because I've never heard anything like it. And he said, "This is Elijah Long. I've always been told that what you tolerate is what you encourage, and so far in my life, it's been true."
Yep. Well, I think you're right about that, and that makes me realize I have to make some changes.
Can you read the quote again? I need to listen to the quote again.
I've always been told that what you tolerate is what you encourage, and so far in my life, it's been true.
I see that as being silent.
Yeah, Elijah Long.
Silent.
Or going along to get along.
You are silently encouraging. So
corruption.
Silently encouraging corruption.
Corruption or taking advantage.
Right. Dishonor.
Right. I was reading a study regarding corruption and spirituality. And this concept was brought up, without, being so eloquent, but it was stating the fact that some people, they just kind of go along with it and they almost protect the corruptors because they're going along with it. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to rock the boat. Right. So they end up protecting. Betas. Let me protect the corruption so that things will be okay and I don't have to get so involved. And that's what happens in societies in which we see that, for instance, back in the day, I wasn't born at that time, but you may have witnessed this, Mom, I don't know, that women would take on the views of their husbands, right? And so, well, my husband says this, and
absolutely,
my husband
that's
says
what I heard growing up.
That's what you heard growing up.
My
Instead
husband
of
says, and they never gave their own opinions.
They didn't give their own opinion. So with would it be, I guess, the second wave of feminism? You had more sort of unleashing your voice, right? Your own voice.
I forgot.
Right?
What is the second wave of feminism?
That would be after the first wave.
Well, okay, the first wave was what? Susan B. Anthony?
Getting the vote.
Getting the vote. Okay.
Yeah.
Getting the vote. Yes.
Right.
So the second
So
wave
having to do with civil
would have
rights.
been my era
Yeah.
when I had
Yeah.
reached young adulthood.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes, and hearing women, my fellow women, say, well, my husband says,
Mhm.
and not having opinions of their own was quite galling. Since
Right.
I was married to a non-American, I didn't have that same thing going.
You wanted to say your opinion.
I had
Yeah.
much greater freedom of opinion and expression, by the way, although I was married to an Arab Muslim who, I am told now, are so controlling that women are...
They don't have their own voice.
They don't have their own opinions.
Which is not true.
Which is not true, because if you've ever known Muslim women,
They're
well,
pretty opinionated.
you'll know they have their opinions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So, when you have a quote like that, right, what it reflects what we've seen. We've seen that, and in this current time, we are seeing women take on the agenda of the men, right, as well. So whereas you would think, and I'm bringing it back to this idea of something like abortion, whereas you see that you would think that women would be like, hey, wait, it's my body, I have control over it. When you see women going after other women for having abortions or trying to take that right away from other women, right, then you see that they are taking on possibly the male agenda or a misogynistic agenda, right, on behalf of males, right? And so that is akin to this sort of being silent, but they're doing it out loud, right? They're not being silent,
They're
but
being silent out loud,
right,
in a loud voice.
Exactly.
It's not their
They're
opinions.
encouraging.
It's someone else's.
It's someone else's, and they're taking it on, and they're encouraging. Yeah. What does the quote say? Encouraging what?
Those who tolerate encourage.
Right. So they're tolerating this mindset that is in effect taking human rights or taking taking rights from other women, from themselves, from it's just. I'm sorry. This is something I was discussing earlier, and I just.
You had to say it.
I had to bring that up again.
To bring it up.
I had to, because that's corrupt.
You had to preach.
Preach it.
I'll say the quote again as we end off here. I've always been told that what you tolerate is what you encourage, and so far in my life, it's been true. Again, that is Elijah Long. You can look him up. Do not tolerate.
Corruption.
Do not encourage.
Corruption.
Wait. Yeah, do not encourage corruption, because encouraging corruption, and tolerating corruption is encouraging it.
Don't be silent either.
That goes for every.
Don't be silent.
No silence. Speak up.
Silence is tolerating.
That goes for every
corruption.
Everything. Every line of everything.
Yes.
If someone cuts in front of you in the line of McDonald's, speak up.
Well, you could be silent and decide to take the high road on that one. I mean, come on. It's just
you don't have to
one
fight
person
every battle.
in front of
Pick
you.
your battle.
That's just one example I'm using.
Okay, but pick your battle.
First of all, I would never go to McDonald's.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway,
their chicken is pink.
Oh, wait.
Hello.
But I love their apple pie things.
Yeah.
Those are good.
That's the only real thing there.
When you're hungry,
yeah.
An apple pie can be.
Their coffee's
so
quite good.
Yeah, that's true.
Their coffee is very good.
Your grandfather loved going to McDonald's and getting the senior coffee.
I will not tolerate this behavior. Okay.
Okay, well,
it's ridiculous. You are being fed by the propaganda machine
Okay, whatever.
McDonald's.
From McDonald's.
Okay.
Okay.
It's excellent.
All right. Okay.
As you saw, I let that battle go.
Yes,
All
you
right.
did.
So,
Very
are we
well.
ready to say good night?
I think we are.
Good night, Arnold.
No,
Okay.
this has been.
Wait. Subscribe, like, comment. What else do we want them to share?
Share.
Please,
Tell
share.
your
Tell
friends
your
and
friends all
family.
about us.
Spread
Okay.
the message because we're very open-minded and we look at it from many different perspectives, and we're like 3 computers
Right.
having a conversation.
Plus the 2 kitties
Plus the
sitting
2 kitties
here.
sleeping.
Helping us
we have a
feel loved.
wide gap in our ages, and
Very
we won't
wide.
tell the middle person. We
I'm
won't
like an
tell her
infant.
age.
Hey, it's 3 generations. Deal with
3
it.
generations.
Deal with it.
generations.
I'm almost 80.
That's amazing that there's 3 generations
3.
in this
and
podcast
we
commenting.
respect each other, and
we have very
Yeah,
different
just
perspectives.
think.
and
Just-
this is a typical conversation in our family.
Wait. I want the audience members to think for a minute. Just think where else you can find 3 generations discussing stuff. Okay? Important stuff.
Discussing important things in the world, and we will have another important topic next week.
Next week. Very
We
important.
have
We
some-
might have 2 guests.
2 guests. We might have 2 guests, not just
2,
one,
not just 1.
but
2.
2. So
First
stay
the
tuned
worst,
for that
second
one.
the best.
Mhm.
Just kidding. That was a joke. Okay. Anyways, we have been
The
Bayat
Beat.
Thank you.
Good night, Arnold.
Thank you, Arnold.
See you next time.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Bye.
Bye.
ولا ويلي ويلا 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 ولا ويلي ويلا 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 ولا ويلي ويلا 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 ولا ويلي